Thank you very much. Working? Good. Thank you very much. Good morning. Thank you for presenting me here. Thank you for hosting me, and thank you for the hospitality and the opportunity to address you here. So, when I looked at what I could present to you, I realized in front of me there would be a number of experts who happen to be, if I'm correct, all economists. So I was sure that the economic background would be explained to you in detail, and you would have understood why circular economy makes sense to mankind, to all of us, to Uruguay. I thought maybe it's worthwhile to spend a little bit more time to look how it actually goes from the principal concept into something that we can do in our lives, that industry can address in their products, in their means, in their processes. And therefore, I focus not so much on the big picture. I try to drill a little bit down, maybe starting with the fact that circular economy in itself is an old concept, or behind that is an old concept. For a long time, mankind has suffered from scarcity of everything. And if you have scarce resources, then you start reusing them in innovative ways. For example, old movie, obviously here we have a shoe which has been multiple times repaired. You see different nails here. It was a good quality. It lasted long. It's being removed into a different product. Why? Because there was scarcity at that time. And that was a know-how that many people had that hasn't been lost for long. Not in my society, not in your society. Dealing with scarcity, making the most of what you have, instead of simply throwing away, is something which is not foreign to us. And if we look into, if we then look into what happens today, this is a site. One of my colleagues came back and had this photo with him. It's in Ethiopia, and it is the backyard of a slaughterhouse, cattle. And what you see here are vultures. Why are there so many vultures on this photo? You know, they're lined up on the left on the wall, they're flying around, they're picking there. Because more than 50%, or around 50%, of the weight of the cattle going into the slaughterhouse is being thrown out at the end of the slaughterhouse, wasted. And if you have anything to do with slaughterhouses, then you know 50% is a horrible value. Almost everything can be used. Why is that the case? What happened? Well, one of the things was that the quality of certain parts of the cattle going in was poor. The leather was so bad that it couldn't be used for shoes. It had insects were feasting on it. It had everywhere scars. It wasn't usable. That was because it wasn't traceable which one of the various farmers would treat their cattle well, which not, adapted pricing, all of that not possible. And then downstream, the meat, of course, was useful, but all the other products had no taker. Why didn't they have a taker? Because you need to create a value chain. Downstream, you needed a rendering plant who made something out of bones, out of other pieces, actually useful products which can be used further, so that these cattle have actually fulfilled a purpose in a way, instead of half of them being thrown to the vultures. So for me, vultures represent actually waste on wings, or a colleague of mine, Manuel, suggested vulture chains, and we transform them to value chains. You can. Now, if this is at the beginning, in the production stage, in the value chain, then you go further, and we heard a lot about new services. I would like to focus mainly in this presentation not on waste. Waste is, if you recycle waste, it's kind of boring because you have missed many opportunities to make more out of what you have. Here, a company is using actually the internet as a means to communicate with washing machines that they're effectively renting out. And you will see this principle a lot in the future. It drives circular economy. You have a service that someone wants to have, washing machine in the house, accessible immediately. That is the service. They don't necessarily want to buy a washing machine. So this company buys a washing machine, gives it to them, and takes care of everything, including helping the right programming for the washing, including helping them with problems through the internet, including collecting the data and knowing when the system will fail. They are actually buying for that high quality product. It's not the same company who produces the machine. This is the MIEM machine, which is in Europe the absolute top end, really expensive washing machine. Why would they do that? Because costs for sending repair mechanics are high. This has the highest reliability. Quality gives a longer life. If you lease out your equipment, you will make higher profit if you use quality. It allows better repairs, and your repair cost will go down. Now, you might say that's also the case if I just buy a washing machine, but there are a number of advantages here. One advantage for the consumer is low upfront investment. You pay 24 euros a month. That is about $30 US, a moderate price as compared to washing machines which range in Europe. They start at around $600. Washing machine of this type, about 2,000, high quality. Second thing is, because the operator, and this is the actual interesting part for the circular economy, the operator is interested in high quality, long life, long maintenance, no early throwing away of the washing machine. And once it's finished, because they know everything about the machine, it can be recycled. It's taken back, it's immediately in the recycling loop. Things are properly taken care of and at the highest level of value recreation. And that is something which is massively simpler by using the internet for consumer products, but it is happening also in very different industries, both industry to industry as well as industry to consumer. And these are opportunities which are there for companies to see that people actually don't want to own something, whether it is a production company, whether it is a consumer or anyone else, that they actually often only want to have a service. And money is in the fact that you can provide the service better and more efficient than the person requiring it could. There is lifetime extension. A lot of products can be remanufactured. We heard the example of Renault and their gearboxes and motors already, so I will not go into that. Just to say that Remtech is a company in South Africa who is actually recycling, and Probe as well, who are recycling and remanufacturing replacement parts for a number of applications, in particular cars, and they have sufficient and high quality. And Caterpillar, for their heavy machinery equipment, does that anyway for years. Once Caterpillar machine is done, one of the big yellow machines largely used in mining, it will live almost forever in its parts, because there is hardly anything which wears down to a point where it has actually been thrown away or completely recycled or molten down. It's really usable and repairable over time. And then, of course, there's the smartphone, which is one of the ultimate examples of, used to be one of the ultimate examples of not very easily recyclable, but there are attempts to move that into modules where even the fast movement of fashion, in this case mobile smartphones, can be adapted to circular economy by only replacing parts of the phone, those which need upgrading, and others remain. We had a case in Morocco. We were working with a battery company. They produce battery for automotive plant also in Morocco of a large manufacturer. And they saw, and that is another issue that I would like to bring to you, they saw an opportunity. They were manufacturers, they had their market, they were selling their batteries. They realized that recycling of batteries, taking batteries back and using them as raw material to build new batteries or remanufacture batteries, actually gives them an advantage. And the car manufacturer, it's a large car group, they actually accept remanufactured batteries because for new cars, not for replacement parts, for new cars, because the quality is as good as freshly manufactured. You have an industry here who is engaged in linear economy, and they have seen a business opportunity in going into remanufacturing and recycling their core products. They just had to add on additional processes, and they do that extremely successful. The batteries they are selling are going into the hundreds of thousands, and we were actually only there to further, how should I say, optimize their production processes. Now, the recycling of batteries then leads us back to how does these business models relate to environment? Because batteries containing lots of lead lead to substantial environmental pollution. And I have just recently seen very unpleasant pictures of alternative ways of recycling lead from batteries, where people are sitting there and melting it over an open fire and then trying to sell lead, getting poisoned in the process, not only themselves, but the whole environment around getting poisoned. An industry which takes back these and takes care of them and reduces the need for new lead, and at the same time uses proper processes, is really helpful for health, for the workers, of course, for the environment, and evidently for their bottom line, because this is not a UN project or otherwise supported. They saw a business case, they went forward. Now, if you talk about the use of circular economy on addressing environmental problems, and that is the last issue I want to bring to you and challenge maybe, the recycling and disposal of plastics in developing countries, and here's where I'm moving to the issue of waste and actually end of life. That is a tremendous challenge. We have here photos from Vietnam and the Philippines, and in the Philippines actually it turns out that 74% of plastic in oceans is from collected waste. Waste that has been collected is maybe on landfills and blown off by wind or otherwise end up in water. In comparison, China, for example, 84% are from non-collected waste. What do we learn from that? Waste management itself is a problem. Ideally, you start early with addressing the plastic, moving it out, and recycling it. Not so easy, though. If you look at this graphic here, shows you a number of different plastic types on the bottom, and a number of different sectors of use: packaging, construction, automotive, etc. And the size of the symbols show you about the mass which is employed from the different plastics in the different areas. And you can see, if you add them up on the right side, you can see packaging goes for 40%. Packaging is something where circular economy can really help by starting early, designing packaging which is non-plastic, reusing packaging, closing the loop for something as simple as the water bottle or the packaging around fertilizer or around the pesticide or on other items of almost daily use. Designing out the plastic, designing to less plastics, because you can see here, if you are close enough to the screen, you see that almost everywhere there's at least a little dot. It's multi-plastics. If you go out to the displays outside, you see there's one company or one display which shows how out of plastic, how they are treated with several steps, and then equipment is made out of. If you see the display for the plastic packaging in the very beginning, which are like sales packages for sweets, if I recall correctly, this is multi-layer plastic, multiple plastics, aluminums, and other materials in one go. Very difficult to recycle properly. So you have to put them into, in comparison, a low-value compacted product. Here, design will help. Better plastics, things which are easier to separate. Not using plastic, but bottles where you don't have too far transport ways or other means are very interesting ways to deal with plastic within the concept of circular economy, and at the same time solve some of the problem which is related to the immense amount of plastics washing first into our rivers and then into our oceans. Now, two last points after having talked a little bit about examples from industry, which are meant to open your eyes that you actually can do something. You have to see what's happening, and then you can see the inefficiencies. And if you see the inefficiencies, then there's business to be made. If it's big enough or not, profitable enough or not, it's maybe a different question, but there are opportunities. Now, what can the government do, actually? Because what you might have taken away from this morning's presentation is there's so much. The whole area is big. Complexity is high. Where do we start? Well, we can start by learning from people who have started a little bit before us already, in this case in Netherlands, who started with trying to prioritize the area where they wanted to focus on. That makes life already easier. 80% that discarded, I take my main problems. In this case, the Netherlands, biomass in food, plastics, manufacturing industry, construction, and consumer goods. All the other things were for the moment taken aside. And then, as the next step, they started with a number of different interventions they could deal with. They were working on legislation and regulation. You can see that these markets will get better if you push people to use, let's say, less plastic bags in the malls. If you facilitate that producers need to use some level of recycling material, all of these are by fostering legislation and regulation. Intelligent incentives for markets are in there. This is not an area where forbidding things helps very much. Intelligent, smart movements for entrepreneurs are asked, and then they need financing to make it happen. Knowledge and and innovation needs to be spread. Even things like repairs could be done much better if information is easily available. The servicing sector at large, servicing products in the country, which is substantial in Uruguay, has huge opportunities the better people know what they can actually do. International cooperation, of course, helps, not in the sense of UN agencies like us or ELISA, or not only, but also by cooperation with your neighbors, with the regions, with others, to gain knowledge commonly, to spread good examples, and to exchange goods that you create maybe from recycled material or remanufacturing. And finally, behavioral change. People need to be aware. Everyone needs to be aware. And we had that topic already this morning, that people have more and more awareness of just throwing away is not an option. That if you look outside, you can see the displays outside are a way to create awareness that remanufactured goods are beautiful. That it doesn't have to be the first virgin packaging of the product coming from a faraway manufacturing line. That these things are interesting and have personality. This has to be supported more, and governments can help so much. So this is essentially what I wanted to bring to you, that it is not that easy to work in this and to get something done. And over time, many initiatives from the government, from industry, from everyone, will move together to create more and more circular economy and reduce more and more the wasteful use of resources.